Donald Trump spent Martin Luther King Day attacking special counsel Jack Smith, attacking Ron DeSantis, and attacking evangelical leaders. A hat trick of weirdness and hate being spewed by Donald Trump. The depths of Trump's delusion and his depravity are just reaching new lows. Did you even know it can go this low? Now, as he fears what looks to be imminent indictments, Republican leaders, meanwhile, spent Martin Luther King Day pretending that they don't spend every other day of the year attacking Martin Luther King, King's legacy and teachings, and trying to ban books and actually banning books about Martin Luther King. Gaslighters are going to gaslight, and we need to call these extremists out. Kevin McCarthy stated in a press conference that he actually had, quote, some questions about George Santos's resume. Really, you have some questions. He also claimed he did not know that Santos's staffers were pretending to be McCarthy's chief of staff to raise money for Santos. Still, McCarthy and the House Republicans do not even have the ability, the minuscule fortitude to just so much as condemn Santos and say that's wrong. Think about that, which shows you just how weak Kevin McCarthy is and just what performative losers the House Republicans are. And this, as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen sent a letter to McCarthy on Friday about the need to raise the debt ceiling this upcoming Thursday, the 19th, or the U.S. can eventually, by about June, run the risk of defaulting on its debts. Right? The rather simple act of functioning government, the act of raising the debt ceiling so we can
paying bills,
have government work, is really not simple at all when you're now dealing with the grand old George Santos MAGA Republican Party that's determined to destroy our country. So what happens next? And I don't know, after focusing on battling the purple M&M and spreading conspiracies about stoves and IRS agents and focusing a lot of time on allowing smoking back in the Capitol building and supporting George Santos, all while trying to cut your Social Security and raise taxes on the middle class and hardworking Americans. Guess what? Americans do not really support these crazy nut job house Republicans who now have record low approval ratings already, disapproval ratings, if you will. And now with this, they want to hold our economy hostage as they focus on what? Their war on pronouns, their battle against Dr. Seuss, their ongoing conversations about testicle tanning, I don't know, or helping Papa Putin or whatever Tucker Carlson or their cult leader Donald Trump tells them to do at any given moment. That's the Republican Party for you today in 2023. And this is the Midas Touch podcast for you. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by my brothers Brett and Jordy Meiselas, calling out these MAGA Republicans. And right before we started this, I said, you know what? We haven't really called him the GQP in a while. We should call him the GQP. Why'd we stop calling him the GQP?
Let's bring, I know there's so much in the course of a day in a week that sometimes things just get lost and buried. But what the GQP reminds me of as we're speaking about people like George Santos is they really are the party of just liars and conspiracy theorists.
Yes.
And perhaps nobody is actually more of a Republican today than George Santos. He is emblematic of what this party became. Honestly, they should make him the leader. They should make him the leader of the party. He so represents what this party is, just a party of absolute fraud from top to bottom. It is absolutely a disgrace. But Ben, like you said, it looks like the American people are catching on, and catching on quick, which is good to see this time around. Jordy, how you do? I just want to say Jordy is looking extra fashionable today. This jacket, I am envious of the jacket right now. Looking really good, man. How are you doing, Jordy?
Thanks, brothers. Yeah, no, I'm doing really well. I'm excited for the show. And I just can't help but agree with both of you. One, we need to start using the term GQP. more often, because that's exactly what this party, the GOP, represents. They're just a bunch of liars and frauds. And George Santos, man, you can't go a day without hearing this guy's name. Rightfully so. This guy is a complete lunatic who should be nowhere near an elected office. He should be behind bars. He's a fraudster. He defrauded the great people of New York's 3rd Congressional. It's absolutely outrageous.
From a leadership perspective, it should be the easiest thing in the world.
Ben, slam dunk. It's a slam dunk.
Especially right now. Look, I hear that they have, let's look at this very selfishly and callously. I get that it's a very slim majority that they have, because even if it wasn't a slim majority, you got to get rid of the guy. But they still have enough seats where if you get rid of Santos, it really doesn't matter. It's not like the governor appoints the replacement for Santos. That's not the way it works. There would be a special election. So if you believe in your candidates, run another Republican there in that 3rd congressional district and see what happens. And if you can't stand up to George Santos, think about, as we're going to talk a little bit later in this podcast, about raising the debt ceiling and actually having negotiations over real issues that matter to the American people. But if you can't look at George Santos, who's lied about everything, and now it's learned that, selfishly too, from McCarthy, that he's lying and pretending to be your chief of staff to raise money.
McCarthy.
He's running McCarthy. And McCarthy, do we have the clip of McCarthy when McCarthy's like, well, I guess there's something wrong there. Okay, oh, shucks. I never heard of that. It's like, if you can't be like, I am outraged, I am livid, we will be addressing this. You don't have credibility in anything. Do we have this clip of him from today, Brett? We got to play it.
I never know all about his resume or not, but I always had a few questions about it.
What about when you did the campaign pretending to be your chief of staff in his solicitation?
I didn't know about that. It happened, and I know they corrected, but I was not notified about that till a later date.
Did you speak to him about it at all?
Yeah, I didn't know about it till a later date, though, unfortunately.
He's like,
he's
given
that real. I didn't see the tweet. I didn't see the tweet vibes from all the Trump tweets and stuff. Same thing, right, Jay?
A few tells there. One, he's doing this weird thing with his head where he clearly has known about it and just doesn't know what to say. If you play that clip back, he's like, I don't know, shoving his head to the right, and then he keeps blinking. Like, as he's talking, I can't. It's one of my biggest pet peeves is like when you ask somebody a question, all of a sudden they start looking down and they're just not looking at you or engaging, and they're sort of closing their eyes and then cocking their. I mean, the guy is out of sorts.
Here's the thing. McCarthy needs to know that the worst is yet to come about George Santos. And every single day, it's not even a drip, drip, drip. It's like a faucet at full blast of new news coming out about George Santos. And there are criminal implications here. But it seems that the Republican Party, according to them, by Kevin McCarthy's standard, he said a few days ago, I can't even keep track anymore, when he was asked about Santos in a hallway, and he was like, well, why should I get rid of George Santos? What crime has he committed? What crime? Well, I believe in innocent until proven guilty. Let's play that clip and show you the evolution of Kevin McCarthy from just a few days ago until now, because I think even the change in his answer is a bit telling as to what McCarthy's mind is at right now. Here's from the other day.
County GOP called on him to resign today. Does that affect your thinking at all? What do you intend to do about Congressman Santos?
I try to stick by the Constitution. The voters elected him to serve. If there is a concern, he has to go through the ethics, we'll let him move through that. But right now, the voters have a voice in the decision. It's not where people pick and choose based upon what somebody's press has. So he will continue to serve.
Are you going to take any action against him at this point? Are any of these allegations acceptable to you?
What are the charges against him?
Well, I mean,
is there a charge against him? In America today, you're innocent until proven guilty.
Except the voters don't have an opportunity to make the decision. The voters voted for a different person entirely. He made up everything about his life, down to the fact that he was a volleyball superstar, which to me, out of all the things, is just like the most egregious.
Okay, Brett, he gets though, and this is the
so specific.
He gets really granular with the lie. And it's not even like it's not even like Baruch's ever even played Yale or Harvard. Like I went and I looked at those years to see if I'm like, why would Baruch play an Ivy League school? Like, did they even play Yale or Harvard? Like, I didn't even see it on the schedule. So he lies with such confidence. And then he's like, yeah, I had 2 knee replacement surgeries. So like he talks about specific surgeries. And it's not consistent, though. It's not like his lies are all part of this like web where like you create, like when you world build in Game of Thrones and you create like a real coherent language. There's no coherent. It's just constant lies that, that you go to him. It's like, what color is this guy? Red. It's definitely red.
It's pathological. It's pathological.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he can't help
sociopathic.
himself. And do you think should we play the volleyball clip? Because it's so insane.
Please,
and it just gets worse and worse as it
Please
goes.
play it. It's ridiculous. Just play it.
Yeah.
Just listen carefully to every little detail he says while we play this.
George Santos running against Tom Suozzi in that 3rd congressional district coming up next Tuesday. Hey, it's funny, George, you go right to the heart here of me, Sid, and Bernie. At the very end of your biography, it says, in his spare time, George Anthony enjoys volleyball and tennis. Let me tell you why that's funny. You're on this show. Bernie's daughter, Melanie, was a star volleyball player in college, and my daughter, Ava, as we speak, is working on a tennis scholarship when she goes to college. So the 2 sports that you seem to enjoy on the weekends are the same 2 sports our 2 daughters excel in.
It's funny. I actually went to school on a volleyball scholarship.
You did?
And I did, yeah. When I was in Baruch, we were the number 1 volleyball.
Did you graduate
team.
from Baruch? Did you graduate from there?
Yeah.
So did I.
I did.
So
lie.
Cool. So, great school, great institution, very liberal, but very good professors who don't show their bias, which is
very liberal.
Very
okay.
interesting. But that's a whole nother conversation. But it's funny that we went to play against Harvard, Yale, and we slay them. We were champions across the entire Northeast corridor. Every school that came up against us, they were shaking at the time.
Lies.
And it's funny, I was the smallest guy, and I'm 6'2". We had on our block alone, there were 6'7", 6'8". These guys weren't jumping; they were just stretching their arms up in the air. Yeah. We were animals. All of us should have been playing basketball, but we chose volleyball because it was easier. So it was a great time. I sacrificed both my knees and got very nice knee replacements from HSS. Playing volleyball. That's how serious I took the game.
Yeah, well, that's how serious you're taking politics as well.
He's like he's conjuring up the false memory in his mind and like laughing at it as well. And the height of the other players on the team, the fact that where Baruch ranked, like I don't know why I went back and looked at Baruch's schedule during the relevant time periods, because it's a whole lie to begin with.
You know what? I think I actually know how this lie sort of originated. Like what he does, what I've been noticing is people in his lives actually live these experiences. So the person who had got Baruch, from my understanding, is actually one of his, con artist business partners who actually did play volleyball. So he must have heard the anecdotes and the stories and tried to cherry pick that for his own life. I'm dead serious. So if you notice when he's delivering these lies, the specifics, what makes a good liar actually is being very specific about situations, because then who's going to question you? Who's going to be like, oh, you had 2 knee surgeries? No, you didn't. Let me see the information. Oh, you played Harvard? No, you didn't. Let me see the scoreboard. No one's going to question you when you get that specific. But if you notice, when the host actually says, oh, I went to Baruch too, it kind of throws Santos for a loop there for a second. He's got to start changing course and just say something totally haphazard and randomly. Like, we'll come back to the Baruch conversation later, about how liberal they are. And we could just bash schools and institutions for being super liberal. But at the end of it, I mean, that was actually a point of fluster for him when he starts to go into that. And then he starts getting to the specifics as he had heard them, most likely from his coworker or whatnot.
Jordy, that's such a good point, because he does go right to, those liberal institutions, liberal indoctrination. Like he goes straight into this talking point. He never went to the school. He's making things up. And this is a guy, and let me tell you just why this is important. I know you know it, but this is a guy who will be voting on whether the United States defaults on its debt. This is the guy who has control over your life, your family's life, your Social Security, your Medicare, your health care. This is the guy with the control, the guy who lies about every single thing. It's really mind-blowing. It's really just frankly disgusting. The fact that this guy hasn't been ejected from the party weeks ago, and that apparently the standard for Kevin McCarthy and Republicans is that he has to be whisked out of the House of Representatives in handcuffs. That's how.
Think about it. If this was a small business, a mom and pop shop, yet alone a corporation, he would be gone in a second. And so you're telling me that it's the Republican Party and their leadership in the House of Representatives is really the only place in all of the United States where you could be a complete fraud, a criminal, you could sexually harass people, whatever all the time. You could harass your coworkers all the time. That's what the Republican Party stands for. It's the exact opposite of law and order. They hate the law and they're all about disorder. And you go from George Santos and you talk about what Trump was posting on Martin Luther King Day and what Trump was talking about today. And you see the McCarthy clip. You see the Santos clip. You see the Trump clip. We could roll out Comer. We could roll out Gates. We could roll out Boebert. We could roll out Marjorie Taylor Greene. We could roll out Gosar. We could roll out Biggs. We could roll out Perry. I could go on and on and on for the days. They're all freaking like this. Every single one of them is like this. There is no moderate conservative. There is no conservative. It is this combination of criminality, weirdness, this wannabe fascism, this performative. They're all failed like actors too. Like they all wanted to be famous. And this was their path also to kind of being famous and being known. So they strut around the halls of Capitol Hill and they show this arrogance and this attitude in the people's house and the people's building. And it's like, do you even know what you're there for? Like, do you even know what your job is? And the answer is no. Because when they pass a bill based upon a conspiracy theory that they invented to then create a bill to focus on their conspiracy about 87,000 IRS agents, which is just false in every regard. It's 87,000 employees over a 10-year period based on IRS agents who have left and who have been fired so the IRS can function and that the billionaires can't get away with continuing to be tax cheats. But most of the people are IT people. They go, they're defunded. We passed the law. You didn't pass the law. That's not the way it works. You pass the bill. It has to go to the Senate. It has to get signed by the president. They don't know. So going back, though, again, to Santos, to McCarthy, to all those people, and here's their cult leader. Of course, this is the result when their cult leader says stuff like this. By the way, he says this every single day. This is what he posted today on his social media platform. The FBI, fake Bureau of Investigation. Just pause there for 1 second before I read. Then he goes, and the Department of Injustice. Okay, this is the party that claims they're for law enforcement? I mean, calling the FBI the fake Bureau of Investigation, and who he's mad about at the FBI is his own appointee. He's mad at Christopher Wray. He's mad at Christopher Wray for conduct that occurred in October of 2020. And
let me just say, like, one of the whole criticisms when I see, stuff about the special counsel who was appointed by Merrick Garland for the Biden documents is I see people like Lauren Boebert and like Trump and, all these MAGA lunatics posting, how dare they appoint a Christopher Wray friend? Christopher Wray's a Republican who was appointed by Donald Trump. What do you mean? Don't turn him into a Democrat. How dare you appoint somebody who was buddy-buddy with Bill Barr?
It's their playbook. It's their playbook. It's the circular firing squad that is the Republican Party. The second that they're no longer, quote unquote, of use to them, they will turn around and call you a rhino.
And you know who's the biggest example of it, who they still attack every single day? This is really like the end result of all of it, is when they find somebody like Ray Epps, who was an actual MAGA insurrectionist, and they go, Democrat FBI plant, and they ruin this guy's life over this. And every single, even today, you could find thousands and thousands of tweets of people going, oh, Ray Epps, when the Brazil insurrection happened a couple weeks ago, it was, oh, did Ray Epps do it? Those were all the jokes from like Matt Gaetz and Boebert. And even Ray Epps
Because
in his-
Fred, on January 5th, Ray Epps was saying we should all go to the Capitol. So that's happened on the 5th. And then on the 6th, there was video of him that basically, when the insurrection was about to take place, he's like, don't attack the cops. Stop, stop, stop. Don't attack the police. So based on that, they've created the conspiracy that he was actually the feds and that he was working with the police because he said, don't attack the cops. And based on that, that's why they ruined Ray Epps' life for that reason. By the way, the FBI put out a wanted photo of Ray Epps as part of the people. Like, why? Why would they do that?
as they do for their secret agents. They have wanted posters and demand everyone find them and turn them in.
Should I go back to reading?
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
The FBI, it was my fault. I digress. The FBI, fake Bureau of Investigation, and the Department of Injustice, together with the Trump-hating thug, Jack Smith, are interviewing, harassing, and subpoenaing people that work for me relative to the boxes hoax and the, quote, peacefully and patriotically speech I made at the January 6th protest of the rigged and stolen presidential election, where so many have been treated horribly and unconstitutionally. This is a Gestapo type operation. Are they doing this to the Biden people? I don't think so. Biden didn't overthrow the United States government. I mean, here you are in the statement still calling it a rigged and stolen presidential election, despite the fact that your FBI, your Department of Justice, all of your lawyers said that you are a batshit crazy and spreading these conspiracy theories. The fact that you lost over 70 federal cases, including cases in front of judges that you appointed, including losing in front of the United States Supreme Court. But you go on and say this, and this is like, it's barely coherent stuff, Brett. Like when you read this, it all. And here was the thing when we showed the deposition of E. Jean Carroll as well. This is how he talks in depositions. So like when he's asked questions, and E. Jean Carroll's lawyer, Roberta Kaplan, was just asking him, so you believe that E. Jean Carroll's a hoax? So what other hoaxes do you think? And his response is, the Russia hoax, Ukraine hoax, he goes, the mail-in voting hoax, and he talks the way, this is how he speaks. And it is beyond weird. By the way, this is who Kevin McCarthy gets his orders from as well. Because Kevin McCarthy's new thing is, not his new thing, but specifically what he's focused on is going after Adam Schiff. And Donald Trump like tweets things and calls Adam Schiff like watermelon head, like a little, like a petulant third grade, like weird stuff. Donald Trump's posting photos of Adam Schiff like dressed in like dresses, and like this is what Donald Trump's spending his time with. And Kevin McCarthy takes that. And Kevin McCarthy then like just completely, the new thing is going back to like, if this was like a company, not only would they be fired, they would be sued for like slander, and they would be sued for defamation, like just like harassing and lying about their coworkers all the time, about Swalwell, about Schiff. It's wild. And they're protected under the Constitution's speech and debate clause. They can't be sued for the things they say on the House floor, which is, we could have another debate about that, but they're immune. That's why you can't sue them for those things.
I still feel like there are other opportunities where they should be able to sue him. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like the other day when McCarthy was making the Swalwell statements and saying defamatory things about Swalwell, he did not say it on the floor of the House, though. He said it in an interview in the hallways. Why is that protected?
In the House of Representatives, he would be 100% ridiculous, but he would be protected under the speech and debate clause for that. Now, if he gave that statement outside and he gave it in the context of just the press interview outside, but like anybody would tell you that, unfortunately, he would be protected under the speech or debate. Like, he shouldn't be. It's just automatic immunity that they get because it was viewed by the drafters of the Constitution that they may say inflammatory things from time to time. And if they could get sued for the things that they say, their liability could be limitless. I don't disagree with you, though, that he absolutely deserves to be sued for that. Now, in addition to this, Trump, again, going after DeSantis. And I think this whole DeSantis thing started because there was like some fake email that was circulating that purported to be from the Trump campaign that sought to fundraise for DeSantis, sought to fundraise for Trump praising DeSantis, and the whole thing was kind of false, like it wasn't even a real thing that was being sent around. But Trump had to deny that this was even sent by him, and so based on that, like, he had DeSantis in his mind. So when he was giving this interview on this right-wing network, DeSantis's name came up, and he like just straight up threatens DeSantis. I'm gonna have to go after him the way I handle other people. Like, just listen to the way this guy, this mafia style talking of crazy. Play this.
Those rallies were unbelievable, and he ended up beating Gillum. And most people thought he couldn't do that, but I thought he could. So I got him elected, pure and simple. He would have never, if I said I wasn't going to endorse you, and I was close, there was no reason to go wild about endorsing him. So, now I hear he might want to run against me. So we'll handle that the way I handle things.
We'll handle that the way I handle things.
It's like the most transparent. Like, he's like, I know when we've had Cohen on and stuff, he goes, you got to listen. Donald Trump speaks in mafia style code, but sometimes he just speaks. Sometimes that is as direct. That to me is not even code. That to me is like, I am going to come after you, and I am going to smear you and attack you and threaten your family. The same things he's doing to Jack Smith. That's what he's threatening on DeSantis, on his wife, on his kid. Like, that's his plan. It's really disturbing stuff.
It's really disturbing. And as bluntly as he says it, though, it is definitely a bit mafioso in the style. I think in that same interview, maybe we'll touch on it later, but he starts to go after the evangelicals who have not endorsed him for his 2024 presidential run yet. And he calls them very disloyal. These people are being very disloyal. It's all about loyalty to him. It's a very strange dynamic. And coming from a former president, I mean, it's disturbing, and it should alarm everybody who watches these clips. Like, yes, we could talk about it and maybe make light of it a bit, but at the root of it, this guy was the president of the country. He's run in 2024. There's an entire movement based around him and his ideals. Like, he's a clear and present danger to our democracy.
I got to say, there's one. I just want to say, I was thinking yesterday, it's unbelievable that we survived 4 years of this maniac in office. Honestly, 4 years is a long time to have this maniac running things. And I was just like, last night, I was like, we are so lucky. I mean, obviously, so much damage has been done. But man, thank God, thank the voters. The fact that we survived those years is
because what it does come down to, though, is that he is very incompetent, and he also is very weak. It's all braggadocio, it's all bravado. There's nothing real behind it, which is frankly, I think, one of the reasons we've been able to survive the 4 years, because he spends all the time golfing. When he actually gets involved in things get destroyed right away. But he's such an idiot, and he's so distracted by a lot of things that fortunately he's not focused enough at the time to actually execute on his fascistic desires, unlike other fascistic people in the past. But to your point, Jordy, and I wouldn't use the word ideals so much as his kind of his the hate that he spews and the brainwashing that he engages in on his cult. It's that Trumpism. It's that strand. It's the fact that you have this lunatic domestic terrorist army of MAGA supporters who still support this guy, even if that number dwindles to 15% or 10% of the population. You're still talking about tens and millions of people who are willing to do anything for this utter criminal, this wannabe fascist. And that's why we have to call it out each and every time. And but I say, regarding the Trump and DeSantis going at each other, do it. Do it. Attack each other, eat each other up. I will have my popcorn. I will watch that, and I will add any fuel that I can to that fire. I don't have to, though, because Donald Trump is going to try to destroy DeSantis's life. And by the way, DeSantis is very weak too. That's the thing about both of them. DeSantis is slightly more competent and intelligent than Trump, but DeSantis's whole shtick is he goes to someone in the media, he yells at them. But if you ever watch him be confronted with actually a tough question, he's a very scared individual. He's very weak. He's a very bad debater. He's very bad on his feet. He really can't handle problems. And he's kind of someone that the moment a campaign at a national level gets started, I would imagine there's going to be a lot of controversy and a lot of scandal surrounding him as well, just how he handles it. Jordy, you mentioned the statement that Trump made in the same interview about evangelical leaders. If we have that clip, this is Donald Trump today attacking the evangelical leadership.
You were the ultimate fighter, the ultimate counterpuncher for sure, and that makes me think of evangelicals, why they loved you twice in those elections. And when you announced your candidacy, at least as it stands now, some of these prominent evangelical leaders who backed you last time, they're not yet willing to commit, like Robert Jeffress is not, some others. It seems like many of them are waiting to see how the field takes shape before backing anyone. What is your message to them?
Well, I don't really care. Look, that's a sign of disloyalty. There's great disloyalty in the world of politics, and that's a sign of disloyalty because nobody, as you know, and you would know better than anybody because you do such a great job, nobody has ever done more for right to life than Donald Trump. I put 3 Supreme Court justices who all voted, and they got something that they've been fighting for 64 years or many, many years.
Right.
And nobody thought they could win it. You know, they won Roe v. Wade. They won. They finally won. And you know, I was a little disappointed because I thought they could have fought much harder during the election, during the 22 election, because, you know, they won and a lot of them didn't fight or weren't really around to fight. And it did energize the Democrats. But a lot of the people that wanted and fought for years to get it, they sort of, I don't know, they weren't there protesting and doing what they could have done. But with all of that being said, there's nobody that's done more for the movement than I have, and that includes the movement of evangelicals and Christians and the movement very much of right to life.
Can we just talk about the interviewer, though, who goes, everybody knows you're the ultimate fighter. You're the ultimate counter puncher. And that's why the evangelical leaders like you. Now, why would the evangelical leaders like, what are those qualities? Because you're a fighter and you counterpunch people, that's what attracts the evangelical community. You would think they would say, well, based upon your compassion and following the teachings of Jesus, and that's
you clearly haven't read that commandment then.
Thou
shalt punch back.
And you're a fascist and you are a despicable human being. Of course, that's why the evangelical community clearly supports you. So why aren't they supporting? Well, you know, I fight like hell. You know, you break this stuff down, and that's why. You know, I don't want to like pat the Midas Touch Network on the back, but like when you hear the large media networks, like why aren't they saying that? Like they would just accept those statements that the evangelical communities like what? Like what was that statement right there? Like how could nobody call that out? But it is interesting to your point, Jordy, that here Trump he's afraid. He knows he's losing their support. And so now he's counterpunching the evangelicals. Punch them.
Always a good strategy.
Counterpunch.
Chapter 1 of How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Counterpunch. That's
always counterpunch.
Literally, you turn the other cheek. It's like you slap them in the cheek.
Where was Trump taking that interview from? Underwater? What was going on there for him? You'd think he'd have at least a little better connection over at Mar-a-Lago.
I've got no idea. I don't even know what he was saying. Like, I don't think he knows what he's saying, and I don't think he totally understands his own argument, because just 2 weeks ago, Donald Trump was saying, I think Republicans went a little too hard on the abortion stuff, and they lost some support because the Democrats were able to run on it. And in this interview, he sort of waffles back and forth between both that, but also, why didn't the evangelicals get more energized? And why didn't they go out there and start going, abortion, we did it, we banned it, we look at us, look at it. And he doesn't really know where he stands. All he knows is that his support is dwindling by the day. His back is against the wall. Mm-hmm. So he does what his instinct is, which is to attack. And in this case, he's attacking the very people that he needs to get elected. It's ridiculous.
Wait, I just want to make this quick observation then before we move on. It's also a sort of a trick too, Brett, that we've seen time and time again with these MAGA Republicans, with these Republicans at large, is they'll go on one platform and say X, and then go on another platform and say Y and Z, just based on the perceived audience who they think they're going to be talking to. So the fact that Trump came out and sort of said that there leads me to believe that the conversation he thought he was going to have with this person, that the viewership was very evangelical in nature.
Yeah, I'm not sure where else he goes. It's the same network. That's the extremist network that he goes on every day. So I mean, it's not like he's
the only one
going
that
on
lets him on at this point.
it's not like he's going on any other networks right there. But you know who did go on another network though? Ron Johnson from Wisconsin. He went on the Chuck Todd Meet the Press, and I got it. Chuck Todd did a
Stop it. He did his job. Chuck Todd did his job. That's the headline.
Still, Chuck Todd let Ron Johnson just move on to the topic. Chuck Todd's like, you're living in your own cocoon. All right, let's talk about Brazil. He still didn't really hammer him. But, Chuck Todd said, okay, you all want to focus on Hunter, who didn't work in the government, who had nothing to do with any policy. Well, Democrats in the Senate want to investigate Kushner because while he actually was a representative, one of the highest government officials in the United States at the time, who couldn't secure a security clearance, but was given a security clearance anyway, despite the fact that he failed the security clearance check, he engaged apparently very selfishly on multiple occasions in trying to bail his own personal businesses out. Like he bailed this building that was in $1.4 billion in debt in Manhattan, the 666 building. That all of us.
Imagine if Hunter Biden owned a building and the number of the building was 666. Let's just start there and imagine the freakouts, the QAnon conspiracy theories, the comments from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Okay, proceed.
So Kushner owns this 666 building in Manhattan that he acquired with his family money. Tanked. They cannot run it for crap. And they're about to come due on a $1.4 or $1.3 billion debt payment that is now due, which would bankrupt the entire family. There's a Saudi Arabian blockade taking place on Qatar. And so what does Kushner do while this happens? He flies to the Middle East. He meets with the Qatari government, and then he meets with the Saudi government. And then all of a sudden, the Saudis agree to end the blockade of Qatar, and then Qatar, through an entity that they have ownership of in the United States, has a 1.4, almost to the dollar, $1 billion ground lease in 666, which was a trash property that nobody wanted a part of. All of a sudden, they do a ground lease that basically to the dollar equals the debt payment that's due, rapidly increasing the value of the building. And then after doing that, because now Kushner's got himself caught up in a whole Ponzi scheme of Middle East stuff. So then he's got to go give something to MBS. So then he gives MBS classified records. He gives them the enemy list of all of the kind of assets against MBS that our intelligence community was aware of. And what does MBS do? He kills everybody on the list that Kushner gives him. And then what happens after that? When Kushner leaves, then MBS gives him $2 billion for giving him the enemies list. And then, by the way, when MBS was here, MBS said this happened. MBS was bragging to American press and British press saying, I have Kushner in my pocket. He was the one who bragged that Kushner gave him the enemy list. This isn't like, oh, just sources said. MBS, the leader of Saudi Arabia, said Kushner gave him the enemy list. And Kushner didn't deny it. Kushner's like, that's not true. Think about that. So with all of that context, let's play this Chuck Todd interview.
Where I have skepticism of both parties. I sit here with skepticism of a lot of people's work. And I'm curious, were you at all concerned? Your Senate Democrats want to investigate Jared Kushner's loan from the Qatari government when he was working in the government negotiating many things in the Middle East. Are you not concerned about that? And I say that because it seems to me if you're concerned about what Hunter Biden did, you should be equally outraged about what Jared Kushner did.
I'm concerned about getting the truth. I don't target individuals.
You don't? You're targeting Hunter Biden multiple times on this show, Senator. You're targeting an individual.
Chuck, my concern, Chuck, part of the problem, and this is pretty obvious to anybody watching this, is you don't invite me on to interview me. invite me on to argue with me. I'm just trying to lay out the facts that certainly Senator Grass and I uncovered. They were suppressed. They were censored. They interfered in the 2020 election. Conservatives understand that. Unfortunately, liberals in the media don't. And that's part of the things that, part of the reasons our politics are inflamed is we do not have an unbiased media. We don't. It's unfortunate. I'm all for a free press.
Well,
it needs
Senator,
to be more unbiased.
Senator,
There's misinformation on both sides, but the censorship and suppression
we're trying to do
primarily
issues here
occurs
and
from
facts.
the left.
Partisan cable. Look, you can go back on your partisan cable cocoon and talk about media bias all you want. I understand it's part of your identity. Let me move to what happened in Brazil.
They've uncovered Hunter Biden's dick pictures on a laptop. That's what they are. That somehow dealt with causing interference with an election while Donald Trump was the government. I mean, they are such complete. They're clowns. But that's also why the whole both sides, conservative, liberal, the construct, there always has to be like a yin to the yang, or like, both sides of an argument. Okay, Hunter Biden, Jared Kushner, they're completely different things.
Yes.
Hunter Biden, not a government official. We're talking about like dick pics and some weird stuff. By the way, if he committed crimes, go investigate him. But he wasn't representing the United States as some weird prince, like some weird crap that doesn't exist in our country, doing foreign diplomacy, undermining American foreign policy, and taking bribes to help his own personal business. That's just not what was taking place. So it's not even a close comparison here between the two, but that's the tactic of MAGA, that the moment that they've done it, Donald Trump has Chinese bank accounts. He's taken $15 to $20 million while he was right before he was the president, in dealings with like Chinese officials who were like close to the government and had secret Chinese bank accounts while he was the president. So what do? Just make shit up. If you're a MAGA Republican, just lie, because the media is not going to go into it. So just say Biden's owned by the communist China. Just say it. Because then your people in your echo chamber just hear it. And then when the real news is reported that Donald Trump has has this account, you do. But on the other hand, however, don't you want to say, no, they're completely different concepts. And that's one of the way law and order is eroded. But Brett, we've got some serious things to address right now with all of the chaos agents that we've just demonstrated exist. I mean, we could go on for 5 hours, profile literally every member, every single one, at least in the House of Representatives, and probably 95% in the Senate of these Republicans. And they're all like that. They're all weird wannabe fascists. But now we got real stuff to deal with. And I think this caught a lot of people by surprise, because I think everyone thought with the spending package, we weren't going to be dealing with having to raise the debt ceiling this quickly. In theory, while the debt ceiling has to be raised this Thursday, there's kind of ways the government can kind of shuffle around money, which is certainly the least ideal situation to keep the government running through May or June. But things need to be addressed right now. There's nothing more sacred. Maybe there's things more sacred, but what is very sacred is the full faith and credit of the United States. It's definitely up there, and not defaulting on our debt. And these MAGA Republicans, they want to play games with it. They want to basically say, well, we'll do this, but you got to do this. And maybe that works for how you intimidate McCarthy. But Democrats are like, no, we're not negotiating with hostage takers. So no, you are either going to keep the government functioning, or we're going to call you out for it. But we're not there's nothing to negotiate. You need to keep the government functioning. Brett, tell us the situation that's going on with this raising of the debt ceiling.
Well, it's just what you said. They're being fiscal terrorists here, and they are making demands. And their whole goal in this is to secure big cuts to programs that Americans need, like Social Security, like Medicare, like Medicaid. It's always their end game. And I'm shocked that they are playing this card so early on, because We spoke about this so often during the midterm campaign. It was a huge point for Democrats on the campaign trail that Republicans want to cut Social Security and Medicare. It was a big motivating factor for voters. And you had all these Republicans going, that's a lie, blew it on, conspiracy theory, oh, look what's going on, oh, they're lying. And meanwhile, like we were like, we're not lying. Listen to their words. Listen to the things that they are saying. They are saying they want to cut these programs. So now here we are, 2 weeks into Republican control of the House, and they are basically trying to do a quid pro quo of sorts and say, hey, oh, you want that debt ceiling raised? You guys want that debt ceiling raised, huh? Well, maybe a little cuts to Medicare and Social Security will do it. Maybe we raise the age of retirement for Social Security, for when you get your Social Security. How about that? We make some of these changes. We could talk. Now, notice how this never happens if there is a Republican president in charge. When a Republican president is in charge, it's up to, no matter what, push the spending bills through, spend as much money as possible, raise the deficit, explode the debt. We don't care. We'll do anything. Tax cuts for billionaires, $1 trillion here.
They pay for themselves.
They pay for them. Oh, the CBO says, oh, the CBO conspiracy theorist, CBO.
It's like selling a pillow with, it's like they pay for itself. You could get 2 for 1. Give the billionaires 10 jets, 5 yachts. It pays for itself, folks.
Yeah. And it's like the Republicans added $7 trillion to the national debt under Trump. $7 trillion. And now they're demanding cuts to Social Security and to Medicare in order to raise the debt ceiling. It's really an attack on Americans. And the fallout from not raising the debt ceiling would be absolutely catastrophic. And Republicans have gotten close to that before. If you remember in 2011, the one time in our history where our credit was actually downgraded because Republicans played games just like this, same games they always play when there's a Democratic president. Let me also remind you, the Republicans raised the debt ceiling 3 times, no questions asked under Donald Trump. It's never an issue with them. To me, the debt ceiling, just in general, as a function, is politics at its worst. It's the dumbest thing we have in our system. It's a self-inflicted wound in our system. We have no need to do it. It should be understood. If you pass bills that say you're paying money, you should pay that money. There shouldn't be a cap where all of a sudden you go, oh, not paying my bills anymore. That's not how it works for people in their homes. That's not how it should work for our government. You should not just be able to say, oh, no, I'm just going to destroy my credit today of the entire country, wipe out the entire global economy, tank everyone's 401ks, retirement funds. That's what I plan to do today. It's just a ridiculous thing to even get our situation in. It's always a political football. It's always used so viciously and by these just craven opportunists on the Republican side. I wish we could just get rid of it completely. Honestly, it's just so stupid, in my opinion.
Preach, big bro. Did you coin? I just wanted to ask Brett a question, if you don't mind, Brett. Brett, did you coin fiscal terrorist? I like that phrase for the Republicans.
Yeah, it's not exactly super creative, I don't think, but I think it gets the point across. What did Biden call them today? Biden had an interesting term for them today.
Fiscally demented.
Fiscally demented.
Do you have the clip where Biden called Republicans fiscally demented?
You know, you're going to talk about big spending Democrats again? Guess what? I reduced the deficit last year $350 billion. And this year, federal deficit is down $1 trillion plus. Hear me, that's a fact. And there's going to be hundreds of billions reduced over the next decade. But so what? These guys are the fiscally demented, I think. They don't quite get it.
They're definitely not
That's
fiscally
really good.
They're definitely not fiscally conservative. And that's one of the things, too, that Democrats and the pro-democracy coalition just has to stop letting Republicans get away with and calling themselves fiscally conservative. If you look at whether it's Obama, whether it's Clinton, who balanced the budget, whether you look at Biden, you want to see who's fiscally conservative. How about the people who are conserving fiscally, not the people that are spending without being able to pay for it? The MAGA Republicans run our budget the way Donald Trump runs his businesses. And it's not a surprise that when Donald Trump, who says that he's the king of debt, he's not the king of debt. He's the king of bankruptcy. because he's bankrupted every entity that he's touched. So their plan when it comes to their tax cuts is it doesn't even matter how you pay for it. Who cares? Who cares what the deficit is when we're in power? And that's why they run up these mega deficits, and they can't call themselves. There's nothing fiscally conservative. So we have to stop letting them use that label, because as between someone who's fiscally conservative and someone who's not fiscally conservative, if you're fiscally conservative, you already have an edge in the debate. Okay. If you tell me, hey, you can go to this accountant, very fiscally conservative, or you can go to this accountant, not fiscally conservative. I'm going to go, can I get the fiscally conservative accountant, please, who's going to take care of my money? But they're not. This is the group that, to Biden's point, it's the accountant who's going to come up with some scheme and then put my money, and steal my money and give it to some billionaire. It's the opposite.
How often have you heard somebody say the refrain, I'm fiscal conservative, but I'm socially liberal?
Yep.
You hear it all the time. And that's why I vote for some Republican. Because I'm socially liberal. I support gay marriage. It's usually like couched with like something, but I'm down with that. It's all good. But I'm fiscally conservative. If that's the case, then you're a Democrat. If that's the case, because there's one party that's fiscally conservative, and it's the Democrats. And you don't have to believe me. It's math. It's literal math. It's numbers. It's in writing. It's indisputable. So that's the facts. They lie about everything. And as we go through this, from Santos to McCarthy to lying about the debt and the deficit, lying about IRS agents, you realize they lie about everything. We may have difference of opinions on the pro-democracy side about different issues, different way of handling things, but I don't see people just outright lying like that, just so brazenly. This is math. They are lying. It is in black and white for all to see.
So you go, why? So why are they lying? Like, why does Santos lie? He lies because he wants to stay in power. He lies because he wants money. He lies because he wants some advantage. And by lying, he can distract you from the truth. And so when you see MAGA Republicans saying that, look, one of the things that this is their big thing this week, Democrats are coming to take your stoves. They are coming for your stoves. And you go, well, why would they lie about why that they're coming for your stoves? Because while they distract you with that, and while the media talks about that, look at my left hand. It's sleight of hand. It's the magic trick, right? Look at my left hand. Here are the stoves. Boom, got your Social Security. Boom, got your Medicare. Boom, got, your ability to have access to affordable health care. That's what they're actually trying to take away. And if they were to actually say those things versus take, what they talk about, stoves and IRS agents, they know that they will be criticized. They know every one of their policies, every single one, other than with like weird cultists and billionaires without consciousness, which is mostly all billionaires, but a lot of billionaires. Other than that, their policies do not have any positive outcome on 99, probably 0.9% of Americans, every single one of their policies. So they got to get you angry, and they could get you angry with pronouns. They could get you angry. What's the one that they've been posting now? The last night after like the Miss Universe pageant, which is now owned by
I didn't even follow this one. I saw something about it.
By a trans individual. Yeah. And so now they're focused on, oh, that's not a real woman. And they post that around, and really she's not a girl, and that's like they're focused on all of these issues to try to distract you from what they're really after. They're after your money. They're taking your money. They're sucking your power. They're taking away everything from you and enriching themselves. And that's the sleight of hand going on. And when we talk about gaslighting, it's always on display on certain days of the year, particularly. And I just feel like on MLK Day, it's like always on. So like where you have the MAGA Republicans, they post always some generic quote about I have a dream regarding MLK or something very generic.
No, I'll tell you what it is. It's always the same one, because it's actually very devious what they do.
Mhm.
They always post the don't judge by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character post, and then they ignored the rest of Martin Luther King's words, the rest of all of his statements ever throughout his life. They focus on that one for the most part. And why? Because they use that to try to push their racist policies. They use Dr. Martin Luther King in an evil way. They use him to try to say, and that's why we're banning CRT, something that doesn't exist, right? And that's why we are banning, ironically, the teaching of Dr. Martin Luther King in schools, because we don't want white kids to feel bad. Like Martin Luther King said, judge them by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Not what he meant. And it's almost become a weird tradition in these holidays, a sick Republican tradition
They look forward
where you
to it.
just know. You know all the tweets are coming. You know you're going to get the Ted Cruz tweet and the Boebert tweet and the Greg Abbott tweet. And the Greg Abbott tweet probably highlights this more than just about any of them because it's so clear cut. And I'll bring it up. So like Ben said, he does a generic image, Martin Luther King Day. Greg Abbott, governor of Texas, writes, Dr. Martin Luther King's vision of liberty and opportunity for all inspired our nation. Today, we honor his life and legacy. The beacon of hope he lit burns brightly in Texas. Now, it burns so brightly in Texas that Greg Abbott has actually extinguished the flames of it burning because he actually has a bill that passed the Texas Senate that removes Martin Luther King from the required curriculum. So this is a guy who is pretending to celebrate the legacy while he is signing bills removing Martin Luther King from the curriculum. And I bet if confronted about it, he would say, just like Martin Luther King said, content, not the color of your skin, the content of your character. That's the line they try to use to justify all their decisions like that. It's really sick and twisted.
Here's what President Biden said today. He said, the idea that we're supposed to remain silent on abuses of the past as if they didn't occur, that's not being woke. That's being honest. Here, let's play this clip of President Biden if we got it, Brett.
The idea, if we can hold a second here, the idea that we're supposed to remain silent on the abuses of the past as if they didn't occur, that's not being woke. That's being honest. That's talking about history.
And I've been thinking about it a lot more, Brett, with, we talked about this on the last podcast. We're like, okay, their obsession with Mr. Potato Head and the green M&M, who they label a lesbian, and the purple female M&M, who they label obese, and, and Dr. Seuss and all of these things. We touched upon it last time, but it allows them to go to these anthropomorphic objects or figures, and to project all of the racism that they want to do on actual people. And they know if they did it so overtly to individuals and people that right now they would get pushed back for that. They hope that they wouldn't get pushed back for it. So they focus their target on these inanimate objects that have been given personalities so that they can go after and attack them and project this racism and hate on them in these, in these really despicable ways, and this whole thing about the woke and the this and the that, they're just substituting words, right? Mm-hmm. Like that's all they're doing. We know what they really mean when they're saying, when they're saying the woke. Like it's obvious. And I'm glad that President Biden is calling it out, but I think we also need right now more than ever, as we're exposing who these House Republicans are, I think we just it needs to be more grassroots also though. Like for far too long, these MAGA Republicans just feel that they can just say whatever the heck they want without pushback, without condemnation, and it's interesting too, like, I don't know if you saw this, but when Kevin McCarthy defamed Eric Swalwell on the House, Brett, to your point, and we experienced this here in the Midas Touch network, where occasionally you'll have some right wingers kind of come after us, and for 24 hours, it's kind of the same pattern that'll happen. Like through their 4chan and their Gab and whatever their things are that they use, and their Truth Social, whatever they call these things now, they'll gin up all of these death threats against you. And they have these apps where they know where you live, and they get like the phone numbers, not just of you, but like family members and people who you live with. And they stop after about 3 days, but I'm sure for people like Swalwell, he gets it probably every day.
Yeah.
But for a sustained period of time, they threaten your life and they threaten your family's lives, and they just go after and they attack you. And Swalwell was someone who was working at like a medical supply company, someone like a healthcare worker in like Indiana or something, who like wrote, "I'm going to kill you, mother effer," and all, but that's what they're being told by the Republican Party, right? Like the Republican Party isn't condemning that. Kevin McCarthy isn't saying that's wrong. Quite the contrary. At the most high profile level, when you're dealing with Nancy Pelosi and someone engages in a home invasion and the Speaker of the House is the intended target of a murder and her husband is nearly killed by someone who's with a hammer who repeatedly beats it, what do the MAGA Republicans do? They can't even condemn that. I mean, just think about the lack of humanity. They can't even condemn that at the most high profile level. So when you talk about, and this is how the show kind of goes full circle, when you are the party where you don't have, it doesn't even require courage, where you just don't have the humanity, I suppose, to go to George Santos and say, get out of this party, get out of this organization. You can't be here. And when you're the party, when the Speaker of the House, who's a Democrat, is the target of an assassination and her husband is nearly assassinated and gets brutally beat and nearly killed with a hammer, your instinct is to spread a conspiracy theory that it was part of a homosexual love tryst and that the guy was in his underwear, and then you make jokes about it and say that this is a good Halloween costume, and you continue to act like that's a funny thing. So when you say Pelosi situation is funny and that you can't speak up to George Santos, those are just two examples. What we have here is dehumanization, right? The lack of humanity. And when you can program people to treat people like cockroaches, when you lose all humanity, that is where things get very, very, very dangerous. And that is what the MAGA Republicans are ultimately doing and have done. They've trained their people to treat Democrats like worse than cockroaches, and that there's no bigger enemy to a MAGA Republican. If you were to poll it, I bet you would say Russia, Kim Jong-un, President Biden. No one does that poll because I think they're afraid of the results.
Sure.
But I almost guarantee you the outcome would be Biden would be more of an enemy to American MAGA Republicans than Putin and Kim Jong-un, and you could put a number of other people on that list.
And I'd even make it more generic than Biden. A Democrat. Who's more of a threat to your life? A Democrat, Vladimir Putin, fentanyl. Like put all the boogeymen in one thing and put a Democrat. You're a Democratic neighbor. And I could almost guarantee that would be number one. But also, to bring it full circle, Ben, Kevin McCarthy, Tucker Carlson, Donald Trump, all these people seem to be able to say whatever they want with no consequence to them. So these followers believe that they could do the same, but often they're reminded that they aren't bound by the same protections as Kevin McCarthy, as their leaders.
So
and
true.
so in the case of Eric Swalwell, they try to use that language at Eric Swalwell. Eric Swalwell calls the guy out publicly. He gets fired from that healthcare company within hours. And that happens repeatedly. And then instead of having the introspection, because this did happen to us when we got attacked once, where we got attacked, I posted the threat. People called up the person's business and the person got fired. The person said very vile threats. After first denying that they were the person who sent the private message to us threatening our lives, they then switched to the same sort of rhetoric in the messages, threatening our lives once again. How dare you cancel me? How dare you come at me? Da, 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 da. The same fear tactics. And it's all in an effort to scare you, to silence you, to threaten you. That's what it's all about at the end of the day.
There's no self accountability for these MAGA Republicans. And by the way, that person who gets fired, after the Swalwell situation, Where's McCarthy, buddy? Where's Trump, buddy? They're not going to save you. They don't care about you. They wouldn't piss on you if you were on fire. Stop following these lunatics. Please, for your own good, just stop it. They don't care
Everybody buckle up. As Jay says and as Brett says, we've got so much news that's going to be breaking over the next weeks and months. We're going to be very, very, very busy here on the Midas Touch Network, but I still feel very good about 2023 being the year of accountability. 2022, the wheels of justice moved in the right direction. They turned ever so slowly with some headwinds, but 2023, the year of accountability, the year of independent media, and the year of the Midas Mighty. And I want to thank each and every one of you watching this and listening to this for all of your support. We are absolutely nothing here without you. You give us inspiration. Please make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel and make sure you also subscribe to this podcast on audio. If you're an audio listener, go to our YouTube and subscribe on the Midas Touch YouTube. If you are a YouTube watcher, go search the Midas Touch podcast wherever you get your podcast and subscribe now wherever you get your podcast. And while you're at it, if you can, because it is a membership, but it does go a long way to help grow this independent media platform, check out patreon.com/MidasTouch. patreon.com/MidasTouch. Here's the thing, folks. We are not funded by any outside investors at all. That's a real revolutionary way of doing the media. Imagine if the large media networks didn't take money from billionaires or decamillionaires who had their own agenda. We don't, so that's how we basically stay 100% independent. But frankly, I wouldn't be doing this if I couldn't stay 100% independent and 100% accountable to you. So if this content is ever not to your liking, that's it for us. But we're confident that we're going to bring you the best, most truthful, the best research content out there. We're working day and night around the clock. And so if you can and you want to support that, go to patreon.com/MidasTouch, patreon.com/MidasTouch. And I'll announce that we've got something really cool on Patreon.
Yes, I was hoping you'd break this on here.
Yeah, this weekend we're going to be doing an exclusive video chat where we're going to talk about some of our plans on our Patreon. For all of those who aren't Patreon members, don't worry, we're not changing our YouTube cadence at all. You're still going to get all the free content that we have here. Just doing it on patreon.com/MidasTouch allows us to get funding for the network, to do the research, to get the editing, to help, pull all the different assets that we do, to work with contributors and so much more. So that's why we do it. Patreon.com/MidasTouch. Also check out store.MidasTouch.com for the best pro-democracy gear and the best Midas Touch gear. I love our Convict or Convict 45 shirt, person, woman, man, camera, prison shirt as well. I read banned books. What a great sweatshirt as well.
So comfortable, by the way.
And we've got just some really good, just kind of standard Midas Touch swag, the Midas Touch hat, Midas Touch shirts. I love when I'm in public and I see someone wearing some Midas Touch gear. It's really cool to kind of just see that out and about. So go to store.MidasTouch.com. There, I know you will really enjoy the gear. And I want to again just thank everybody for watching it. Again, we're so grateful for you. Hit the subscribe button now before you forget. And we'll see you next time on the Midas Touch podcast. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by my younger brothers and co-founders, Brett and Jordy Meiselas. I'll see you later. Jordy, take it out.
Shout out to the Midas Mighty.
At Midas Touch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.MidasTouch.com. That's